Now, the best way for you to understand data transfer types is to see them in action. So here I have a number of different elements on the page that I can drag into the drop target, and it'll report back the type of data that's being dropped into it. So here, if I take this image and drop it, you can see that it reports back that it's text plain. The content is the URL here for the image. It's also a text/URI list, and it has the URI for the image, and text/HTML, and this right here renders the HTML for the item that's dropped. Now, when you do a drag and drop operation, there's quite a bit of information that comes with the dropped item. Let's take a look at a different one. Here, what I'll do is just grab on this link at Craig Shoemaker, drop it in here. So you notice that just the plain text content of what's being dropped is the URL to Twitter/Craig Shoemaker. Now, this isn't exactly a list because there's only one URI, but if there were more than one, it would show the list of URIs within the selection. And then here again, it's rendering out the HTML that was dragged onto the drop target. Now, what about text? I'll select this text and drop it here. So the plain text that was dragged onto the drop target is here, but then the HTML, which includes a little bit of style information, is also included in the drop operation. Now, I alluded to this in one of the earlier demos, but if we take a look at the markup, you'll notice that all of the items that I dragged across the screen and dropped into the drop target, none of those items are set as draggable equals true. So you'll notice the image just has an attribute here for the source. The anchor tags here have an href value, but they're not explicitly set as draggable. And same with the text. So images, links, and text in most browsers are set up as draggable by default. So now let's take a look at the JavaScript required in order to iterate through each one of the different data transfer types. I like to start down at the bottom so that you can see how each one of the events are being attached to the elements on the page. So here, first what I'm doing is finding the drop target and handling the dropped event. Drag enter just cancels the default behavior, and drag over and drag leave are implemented with a little bit of logic just so that you can see the CSS updating on the drop target. So if I drag this here, you can see it gets a white background with a dotted outline. If I leave it, it gets taken off. Now, there's no event handler and no function for drag start. Again, because each one of these items are draggable inherently. So the only other function we need to look at is dropped. Oh, and also there's the function for cancel, but that's just the same as what you've seen in all the other demos. So for dropped, the first thing we'll do is cancel default behavior, and then I'll get a jQuery instance of the target by going to this and running the selector against it. And then I'm creating a variable for the content that I'll build up to render out within the drop container. So the first thing to do is to look at the event arguments and see if the data transfer types length is greater than 0. So basically this is asking, is anything being dragged into the drop target? Then from there, I'll take a look at the item within the index position of 0 and find out whether or not it's text with a capital T. If so, then I know I'm working with Internet Explorer, and all I can do is get the text out of data transfer by using the getData function. Otherwise, though, I can find out a little bit more information about the types that are being passed in. So instead of just going to index position 0, then what I'll do is iterate over each one of the types. So the iterator here will keep track of the type, and then within the content variable, I'll go to the event arguments, data transfer object, and call getType on the current type that's being iterated over. So in the case of the image, the call to getData here for text plain would be this URL. For URI list would be this URI. Or you're seeing it rendered here, but it would be the HTML for text/HTML. And then I append into the target the type and the content. So this demo will show you, as you drag items into the drop target, what kind of data transfer type it is and what content it is that you can work with. So the thing to keep in mind is that you can overwrite these as well. In some of the other demos, what I've done is placed values explicitly into text/plain. So you can either go with the default data that's generated based off the drag and drop operation, or you can inject your own data in there in order to serve the needs of your application.